Hello there, my name is Teo, and welcome to your daily dose of masochism. In this video, I will be attempting a challenge more grueling and cumbersome than having a shower. Back in 2023, we had many hits, such as NPC people, Judge Hutcherson, and this little rat smurf thing. But after 5 years of erectile dysfunction, Insomniac finally gave the fans a cure in the game known as Spider-Man 2, the best representation of the daily life of a New York resident. So, can I beat Spider-Man 2 without taking damage? The rules are fairly simple. Don't take damage. If I do, I have to restart from the last checkpoint. And to make this video a masochist stream, I have to play on the ultimate difficulty, making the game equivalent to walking down the street in England and not getting stabbed. So, will I be able to overcome all 19 inches of venom, finally get my penis hard, and complete this challenge? 2 years before the events of Spider-Man 1, we see Norman get his freak on and fulfill his fetish dream of indulging himself in the art of tentacle porn. But unfortunately, before Norman could end his edging streak, we jump forward to 10 months after the event of Kilometer Morales. Peter has moved on from being something of a scientist himself to become a high school teacher, with Miles being one of his students. But don't think for a second that these boys are letting the ordinary life stop them from being Spider-Man. Because the second trouble arose, these two Spider-Men were the first to take action against Sandman. Unfortunately, along the way, Sandman threw some cars at me, one of which I did not dodge because I completely forgot about the challenge. But I do feel like now is a good time to explain the main way I will be avoiding damage in this challenge, and that is simply by pressing circle. Yes, it really is that simple. By doing so, you do a cool little trick that harnesses the power of invincibility frames. Sandman himself was not too much of a threat, which I strongly believe he did not like. So he threw me against a building to have me face off with his goons. I only had to reset once, because they are also really easy, considering this section is just a glorified tutorial. Not happy with his still erect cock, Sandman attempts to create his own stuck porn with Peter, in an attempt to finish. But just like Spider-Man 3, the pinnacle of story writing and character development, Sandman 2 has weaknesses. Water. Just like a Russian slap competition, Sandman slaps Peter to the ground, completely eviscerating him, leading to Miles having to save Peter, which now means we can get introduced to Miles' section of this tutorial. And even though I pounded Sandman quite a lot, it was not enough, and it was time we turned to potentially lethal attack strategies, such as a water tank. And even after all that, it was not enough. So Sandman decided it was now Miles' turn for a routine beatdown. But even though Miles' fistings made these enemies easier to fight, it still took me 5 resets to move through this glorified tutorial. But before I get going, I must mention, during this section there is a point where you're forced to take damage, so you can learn how to heal. So no, technically you cannot beat the game without taking damage. However, this will not count, as this is not avoidable damage, and I will stand by this till the day I die. One non-consensual, unlubricated fisting later, Peter is thrown into the air while saving Miles. And no joke, the whole point of this is to show off the web wings. And damn, are they fucking incredible. The way that the wings open so smoothly, the way that they glide throughout the city, the way that they handle, it's perfect, down to the last minute detail. In phase 2 of the boss fight, we are once again faced with more non-consensual damage taking, most likely from when Peter got his dosage of pegging due to the 300 million volts of lightning being shoved up his ass. With only one reset, I defeated these goons and put an end to Sandman's reign of terror, putting him back behind bars, listening to him yap on and on. I'm not sure what he meant, but it's definitely not like he's warning me for what is to come. But that is the least of my concerns. The city is now covered in sand, and it is up to me to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man I am and help the people of New York by beating the shit out of some thugs that were unlucky enough to venture onto my radar, and somehow not ripping this guy in half. While finishing off helping the city, I was required to fly drones through holes wider than my buttocks, and take J. Jonah Jameson to the hospital. Certainly the biggest L a character takes in this game. But speaking of L's, Peter loses his job. Arriving home, we get introduced to MJ, who can now ride a bike. Okay, some slice of life anime arcs, Aunt May life lessons, and Peter's realization of his financial situation. Harry makes his dramatic debut into the story, seemingly no longer being sick because of some mystery medicine. The symbiote, it's so clearly the symbiote. I don't know why they bothered to try and hide it. Maybe story reasons, but otherwise it doesn't make any sense. It's just so fucking frustrating! To calm my nerves, Harry and Peter go on a calm, definitely not forced bike ride to their old school, where I get force-fed some friendship lore and sneak around to avoid a guard, and find out Harry's mum got game-ended by some mystery disease. The same disease that was passed down to Harry. We cut back to Miles, who gets a call from Peter about a babysitting mission at the raft to watch the Scorpion get transferred to a new prison. But it turns out Peter's intel was wrong, and Martin Lee is also joining the fight. And if you don't remember, Martin Lee was the man that tragically game-ended Miles' dad in the first Spider-Man game, causing a lot of deep-rooted trauma and hatred towards Martin Lee. But there was no time to focus on being upsetty spaghetti at Martin Lee, because buttplug number 2 decided now was a good time to bend me over. But I would not let that happen. Through sheer power, sweat, determination, and calm, I completed both the first and second section without a single reset. To be honest, I lied to you. I didn't use determination nor calm to beat this segment so easily. I used the art of aerial spinjitzu, also known as sitting in the air like a complete pussy. This completely tanks the AI of enemies for reasons I do not know. Heading inside the ship, using the skills I learned from Parkour Civilization, I get mind-fucked by Scorpion's long and thick tail. And while I was in a fit of anger, I once again glazed the faces of these hunters and completed this section in one try. Due to that deep-rooted trauma that Martin Lee calls Miles, Miles engages in some silly pastimes, such as intent to game end. But instead of following through, Miles unlocks a new Venom power, Chain Lightning. And up until this point, life has been too easy. Way too many butterflies, way too many rainbows, and certainly way too many unicorns. But just like all good things in life, it must come to an end. Resetting 9 times to clear this section. Miles confronted Lee by staring at him really hard, possibly even pissing himself in the process, considering this caused him to risk the lives of these people, who probably have their own deep-rooted trauma now. But with that put behind us, Miles helped save these people and deliver them to safety alongside Peter. Once again, I was forced into do something I did not consent to. Suit Tech is a new way to gain health, damage, focus, and traversal upgrades. But unfortunately, for my first upgrade, I was not given a choice. I was forced into upgrading my health, something more useless than my supports in Overwatch. But thankfully, these upgrades will mean that I get touched inappropriately a little less often. In the My Hero Academia school mission, Harry invited Peter to join a company he started, which he called Emily May Foundation, in appreciation of the late Aunt May and Harry's mother, Emily. But damn, this place has everything. Entomology, energy, space, agriculture, the lizard? What? And a fucking particle accelerator? Is that even safe to be around? Why can't Peter stop walking? But even with all that, something else had my attention. Rockstar Life. Yes. That's the type of shit I'm talking about. If I ever find out that Rock didn't start life, I am taking life. You can tell Harry put a lot of blood, tears, and cum into this project, and now it was time for Peter to blow his load and join Harry in the soggy biscuit. Kraven has been placing blinds all over New York, arriving at one, immediately blowing my load on them, resetting 4 times, just for Peter to follow some intel that leads him to their supervillain lair. In both Spider-Man PS4 and Kilometer Morales, I avoided stealth like a One Piece fan avoids water, but since then, I lost my chest hair, shrunk a few inches, got cucked, and started to do stealth over combat. I am truly ashamed of myself. As my punishment for not being an alpha Chad Sigma male, Kraven's gooners came to put me in my place, just like a goth muscle mummy, but they were no muscle mummy, so I would not allow it. Changing my cum-stained pants and logging the fuck in, I only had to reset twice. Walking away with a half chub from that display of degeneracy. This evil lair finally shed some light on who these people are. Kraven, their leader, is a man that has never blown a load, and to fulfill his masochistic dream, he hunts strong opponents and kills them, in the hopes of finding a worthy opponent that could kill him. In a show of pissed pants and pooped ass, Kraven starts off his hunt and kills Scorpion, with Black Cat next on his list. Unlike starting my homework, Kraven does not waste his time going after Black Cat, who stole a magic wand that gives the user the ability to open portals. And man, what I would do with that wand. For too long have I been clapping the cheeks of these gooners, and it was finally time they gave me 10 good old dick twists. Once Black Cat and I finally locked the fuck in and brutally fucked these goons, Black Cat leaves to go to France to be with her girlfriend. Truly a romantic hotspot to hide from Kraven. Miles goes to Coney Island to meet up with his friends, the one thing these Spider-Men have over me. We see that Mysterio has opened a ride there, where Miles gets to live out his wildest fantasies as a DJ and beating the shit out of gooners, with yet another power awakened by Martin Lee's long-lasting trauma on Miles. And to be honest, this part was pretty easy, only resetting twice due to my incompetence and lack of hand-eye coordination. Once this was over, I finally got to play as Peter, where I went on literally every single ride, even the most boring ones. But not without purpose. I wanted to get the almighty cowboy hat, the second coolest thing to have ever happened to me, right behind my first boner. After playing out the mission that is possibly the closest thing to Chinese water torture, I was starting to lose it. I want 1 billion beers. May I please have 1 billion beers? You there. I want 1 billion beers. But thankfully, these hunters showed up with new weapons to break me out of this cycle, and believe me, they did. Fucking me raw 8 times. I forgot to mention this, but Tombstone had changed his ways and now works as a mechanic here at Coney Island. And I bring this up because the hunters are here to capture him, which they succeed in doing. Due to these hunters being sadists, they start to fuck Peter without protection, until Harry shows up, following his family tradition by indulging himself in the art known as tentacle hentai. Using this newfound power to save Peter and the random people on the ride that I genuinely thought were going to die in my first playthrough. Thanks to Miles showing Black Cat that there really is some hope for New Yorkers, somehow, Black Cat told us where they are keeping Tombstone. Using my ninja-like stealth and the pure stench radiating off my body, I defeated these foes without a single reset, to then make my way inside, where Harry decides to invite himself to the party. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of getting pegged. but this section really felt like it. And not only did my foes have a whole army to back them up, they now had tech that could kick my shit in from off screen, making the tactic of sitting in the air and pounding them redundant. The next part where they held Tombstone captive was really easy, only having to reset twice. This is because you can just ignore the enemies and pull down the support beams that causes an explosion. That lets Harry break into Tombstone's prison and use some anime flashbacks to invoke a Super Saiyan Rage, then swiftly escape via some quick time events and cool animations. If the buttplug known as Kraven couldn't get any worse, he decides to pay a visit to Dr. Connors and kidnap him with the intent to release his inner beast. MJ respectfully enters the hunter's van to hitchhike a ride back to their base of operations. MJ now had military grade weaponry, and if you combine this with the pure rage of a New York resident, this is all it took to take down these hunters. Because of these cybernetic upgrades, this section was relatively easy. The hardest part was when my cat walked over my keyboard and stopped the recording.
Lily, go away. Stop it. Stop fucking around my hand. No.
Other than that, all I had to do was walk around, game end some hunters, steal a key and code to try and save Dr. Connors. But unfortunately, the Edging Lord himself showed up to inject Connors with enough steroids to make the Liver King a Brad Papa. After what felt like waiting for my food to heat up in the microwave, Peter and Harry finally decided to show up, where I used the power of complete incompetence and the wet patch in my pants to reset 17 times. During my multiple raw doggings, Connors brewed up an antidote for the lizard serum. But of course, right as Connors finished, Kraven just had to step in and stop that shit from happening. This guy is a complete fucking prick. With Peter weighing over his head, the roided up dilf known as Kraven stabs him, causing Harry to unleash his inner anime and beat Kraven within an inch of his life, using the hidden jutsu known as tentacle hentai. Once Harry finally finishes with Kraven, he goes to Peter to give him his daily dose of tentacle hentai to keep him alive. Due to this act of selflessness, Harry blessed Peter and me with this challenge run's saving grace, the Symbiote, instantly injecting Peter with copious amounts of Tren and semen, granting me with new abilities. And not only that, he is granted invulnerability during the coked up symbiote surge, which is my holy grail for this challenge run. Without the symbiote, Harry's illness had come back, and with the realization that the symbiote won't go back easily, it was up to us to use the power of friendship to find and cure Dr. Connors. This new suit makes this run much more bearable, giving me many new abilities to make my foes shit their pants faster than the brown note ever could. Seeing that Kraven casually has a pet lion, the most normal Russian pet by the way, we also learned that he has a terminal illness. His whole motivation for this butt fucking I have had to endure. Even though I have this new suit, it can't stop the fact that I lack basic common sense and am still mentally handicapped, as I get my shit kicked in 19 times trying to escape. At this point, the challenge is really starting to get to me.
I was so close. I didn't know she was there. Fucking
Having been doing this for 10 hours already, but unfortunately for my mental stability and anus, there were still many peggings and heartaches to come. Finding my way to a church, I encounter a mini boss fight, and this fight was one of the many sections that rattled me to my core when playing this challenge run. But because I have way too many hours in these games and smell like absolute dog shit, I spanked this brute back to the Jurassic period in only 5 resets, a lot less than I expected. After a beautiful display of the PS5 graphics, I steal the antidote from Kraven, not before he figures out the suit's equivalent to kryptonite. Next on this list of degeneracy and cringe was fixing the antidote with Harry. The way they did this was by shoving it in the particle accelerator and hoping to God it works. And guess what? Kraven's goons showed up once again at the worst time and place. And they were not shy about showing me a close-up look at their fists. 17 non-consensual resets and a couple fires later, the antidote was complete, and it was finally time to go after the lizard. But not before the hunters tragically destroyed Harry's life work, officially starting his anime villain arc. With the antidote finally in our possession, it was time to go find Connors and inject him with his daily dose of methamphetamines. Arriving at the Connors residence, we see that he lives in filth, as shown by his unmade bed and the destruction that occurred in the downstairs area, leading us to a secret passage guarded by a puzzle that not even I could handle. So I will admit, I did have to resort to YouTube for help with this one. Entering his home lab, which he just casually has under his house by the way, we see video footage of Connors unleashing the inner beast and breaking free from his chains. Before I could clean the cum from my pants, Kraven's gooners decided it would be a good idea to show up and kick my shit in. But however, that is not what happened. By now, you should understand that I am a literal god at this game, and I completely eviscerated these gooners' bloodline on my first attempt. And same goes for Miles' section of this butt fucking I am making these hunters endure. Making my way through this weirdly large storage unit place thingy, Miles and Genki come across the remnants of the lizard's last goon sesh. And by golly, is he getting bigger. This calls for help from the big guns, the other Spider-Man, who is not acting like himself. One high-octane, super intense boat chase sequence later, we find ourselves losing sight of the lizard in the sewers, with Peter somehow finding a way to blame this on Miles. Following the lizard into the sewers, we discover Connor's super secret lab, where the lizard ambushes me like a coward. When I tell you that during this boss fight I get my shit kicked in, that is an understatement. This lizard takes my whole ass, fists it until I'm bleeding, puts a band-aid on it, and then continues again. And it doesn't stop there. The amount of shit I had to endure from this fight is intense. I now believe I have some deep-rooted trauma towards this boss fight that is preventing me from having a normal life. I got my shit kicked in 109 times. But once this unconsensual butt fucking was finally over, I got my revenge and pinned the lizard down all sexual style and injected him with 10 tons worth of methamphetamines. When Connors finally comes back to his senses, he gives us a full breakdown of the symbiote, explaining that it's an alien that came to Earth on a meteor, the meteor of which he has in his lab, and for some reason, the symbiote is attracted to it, even changing how Peter's suit looks after he steals it. Dr. Connors also explains that the symbiote chose Peter, which is why he can't give it back to Harry, no matter how powerful their friendship is. Due to Peter's hard work of saving the city from the upper level wankers, this motherfucker is feeling eepy. So after completely disregarding MJ, Peter snuggles up to get some shut-eye. Oh, but look at that. The hunters inconveniently show up again. Thankfully, Spider-Man is here. Wait, don't worry, he's not. Thank fuck that they turned the MJ missions into a third-person shooter. Otherwise, I would have quit this challenge. But thanks to that, I can unleash my inner 12-year-old and fuck these guys up like a Fortnite game. With Miles finally joining the fight, we are no longer force-fed the vegetables and can get to the meat of this mission and chase down Peter to a tunnel, with MJ deciding to run in there after him, thinking the power of friendship would really work against these freaks of nature. With the hunters constantly up my sphincter, I had to hold them back as Miles to buy MJ time, resetting 28 times. And even after all that, MJ can't save Peter, and Miles gets his shit kicked in and gets kidnapped by Kraven. But hey, Peter had a good sleep though, blissfully unaware of what just happened. While Peter is having a dandy old time, Miles is exposed to horrors beyond belief. But thankfully, I am a big boy, and I took these horrors on without hesitation. Using skill, sweat, determination, and the dried up sock next to my bed, I only get my shit rocked 8 times. With my confidence increasing, it was time for that to be brought down once again, and move on to the next boss fight. Kraven had Martin Lee and Miles fighting 1v1 to the death, in an all-out anime boss fight. Martin Lee is a man of many talents, but fucking my asshole is definitely one of them. The first and last phase weren't too difficult, but that second phase really bends me over and shows me who's daddy. Especially these fucking tornadoes that come with an impenetrable force field that can only be broken with a specific ability. Moving on to phase 3, Martin hit me with a skull fuck of a dream sequence, but thankfully, the enemies in here were weaker than my mental state after this challenge. After a broken monitor, 3 controllers, and 74 resets, I flopped my cock onto Martin Lee's face and beat his shit. Due to Miles' good Samaritan nature, he lets Martin Lee escape so he can go find Peter and lead him to Miles. Unsurprisingly, Kraven uses Miles as bait, trapping Peter in a non-consensual finger blasting. Phase 1 of Kraven's boss fight was not that difficult, resetting only 15 times, thanks to my ability to get my cock hard and come on command. Phase 2, however, really had steam coming out of my ears, possibly the most uncomfortable fisting I've received. Because Kraven found the symbiote's weakness, he was able to utilize it and deliver me the pounding I deserved, and forcing me to resort to some degenerate tactics to fight. Just like in the beginning, using aerial attacks would render Kraven practically useless, and thanks to this masculine way of fighting, I was able to defeat Kraven in 34 resets, tie him up sexual style, and prep his butthole for a good time. But that was until Miles showed up and rescued him. Now realizing that Peter was too far gone, Miles had no choice but to take Peter out back and deliver a pounding that only the gods could match, is what I wish happened. But this man delivered me a pounding so good that my past generations watched as I was taught a lesson in how to receive a Spider-Man sized penis. In an act of respect, I'm flopping my cock out to tell you this boss fight took me 74 resets to complete, and we could finally free Peter from the burden that is Fortnite Chapter 1 came out 8 years ago. Miles bottles up the symbiote, him and Peter have a nice heartfelt conversation, and we prepare to take the symbiote back to Dr. Connors at Oscorp. But before that could happen, Harry shows up with his completed anime villain arc and is no longer taking no for an answer, wanting the symbiote for himself to cure his disease, causing him to assume his final form as Venom, turning Harry into a genuine fucking unit that can't be stopped. And because this trend-filled monster is so powerful, the Venom section was piss easy, giving me a lot of confidence, which led me to my downfall. And even though I'm embarrassed to admit it, I am a true man, and I will tell you that I reset a total of 6 times, not including the forceful butt touching I enjoyed, and to my knowledge, this part has unavoidable damage, so once again, I will not be counting it. Kraven looked at Venom as if he was the love of his life, as if he saw his final hunt. Kraven and Venom engaged in an all-out trend-up dill fight. Because of Venom's exceptional abilities, Kraven was much easier to fight this time, being able to diddle his shit in only 14 resets. Venom gave Kraven the maddest gobby of his life, showing that we are now officially in the final act of this challenge run. Thanks to Harry, there are now symbiotes running rampant throughout the city, and thanks to a new sonic blast we ascertained, taking these enemies down are slightly more bearable. But even with this, I still struggle to avoid a max level butt fisting in the form of mandatory time-based missions. Harry comes face to face with Peter, requesting that Peter joins him in his supervillain world-conquering scheme. But of course, this did not work on Peter, and so Harry made him watch as he gave MJ all 19 inches of venom, turning her into Scream. Unlike a lot of bosses in this game, MJ was very easy to stagger, so if you were able to harness the power of Ninja himself, you could pull off a combo so devastating that not even Batman could have enough prep time for. And if you combo this with the conveniently placed symbiote torture devices, this made Scream one of the easier boss fights, clearing her entire boss fight in only 10 resets, saving saving MJ from the life of emoism and degeneracy. With saving MJ done and dusted, it was time for Miles and Peter to get back to saving the city from these rabid dogs. But unfortunately, no matter how hard I tried, Peter still fell back into the life of degeneracy, almost pulling Miles in with him. But thankfully, Martin Lee came to save the day, taking Miles on a mindfuck adventure into Peter's brain, revealing all kinds of sick and twisted desires. In just 10 resets, I was able to beat the vermin invading Peter's mind. Martin Lee gave up his powers, and in return, Peter got all new powers in the form of Anti-Venom, my literal saving grace in this challenge run. Thank you, Insomniac, for giving us one last present to unwrap before this game ends. Venom forces his way back into Connor's lab and steals the rock that brought him back to Earth, finally giving him the power to turn the planet into his own personal hemorrhoid that he could do as he pleased with. New York looked like my bathroom after a bad meal, and it was up to the spider powers to end this reign of terror and destroy this new MacGuffin. The missions leading up to the final boss really tried to put a dick in my ass, but I managed to scrape by using the power of my cum-filled testicles and beat these missions in 27 resets. Thanks to these efforts, Peter locates where the meteorite is hidden and devises a plan to infiltrate and steal the magic rock back, and destroy it using the particle accelerator. Phase 1 of the plan was for MJ to steal into a symbiote hive mind and steal the rock for herself, and admittedly, this MJ mission slapped kinda hard, really honing in on the third-person shooter aspect, and if you keep your distance, the symbiotes couldn't do anything to you, bar from one exception, this fat fuck that didn't hesitate to fuck my prostate. And even though it only took me 4 resets, I still feel as if this was 4 resets too many for how easy this guy is. While this is all happening, Peter is luring Venom away with his fat spidey ass, and initiated phase 2 of the plan, fuck up Venom's shit. Due to my lack of a functioning brain cell, most of my resets came in the form of the opening attack, and I'll be honest, I filmed this 7 months before writing the script, and I'm not sure what I was thinking here when I didn't simply dodge the attack, but my leading theory is that I was trying to learn Venom's parry times. But thanks again to attack combos and environmental training wheels, I managed to learn Venom's attack patterns and clear this phase in a measly 82 resets. Even though I was more handicapped than the average Overwatch player during the second phase of this boss fight, thanks to the fact that Venom got a shield that could only be damaged by Anti-Venom, I managed to lock the fuck in and clear the section in 15 resets, initiating the final phase of this mission, and that is to destroy the meteorite with the particle accelerator. Before that could happen, Venom rebirthed himself as a butterfly and took to the skies, in an attempt to bring Miles down and deliver his regularly scheduled beatdown. Thankfully, the final 2 phases of this boss fight aren't too difficult. This is partially due to the aerial combat involved in this part, which once again made combat piss easy, and by the time I was dragged to the floor kicking and screaming, I had built up enough power to unleash my Venom blast and fill Venom's pants with a load of cum, clearing the first phase in only 6 resets. Phase 2 was a little harder than the previous, but not by much. Using my pure knowledge and toe grease, I cleared this section in 13 resets, allowing us to tag team Venom and deliver a beatdown that not even a god could forgive. We destroyed the meteorite and watch as Peter has to game Ed Harry to save the city from Venom, but in a miraculous turn of events, Miles is able to bring Harry back to life without the likes of Venom. But unfortunately, this renders him unconscious and without much brain functionality, pushing Norman over the edge, and finally teasing the Green Goblin. So technically, you cannot beat Spider-Man 2 without taking damage. But because I am a diaper-wearing man-child, I will not be counting certain points throughout the story where I am forced into taking damage. So because of that, I am happy to announce that yes, I can beat Spider-Man 2 without taking damage. 770 resets later, I can rest easy now knowing that my rectum will no longer get the fisting it so graciously deserved. And if you made it this far, please be sure to comment big wet feet. I'll be sure not to like your comment, and thank you for watching.